Oh, shit.
Welcome to Random Movie Reviews. I'm Nathan, and today I'll be talking about The Quick and the Dead. So my last video, I talked about Tombstone, specifically talked about Val Kilmer's iconic and awesome performance as Doc Holliday, and after watching that movie, I was like, you know what? I'm kind of in a Western mood now. So after I did that video, I played some Red Dead Redemption, and I was thinking, what are some other awesome Western movies or interesting Western movies that I should talk about? And I was like, you know, it's a movie that I haven't seen in a long time. It was actually right around the time that I first watched Tombstone several years ago. And I didn't really like it then, but I was like, you know what? I should give it another shot, is The Quick and the Dead. Now, as you can tell from this shirt here, I'm a big Sam Raimi fan. I'm a big Evil Dead fan, specifically that of Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness. I actually have a framed Army of Darkness poster that you can't see in this camera angle, but maybe I'll take a picture of it and post it here. But I love Sam Raimi because he is such an energetic and visually interesting filmmaker who is so unapologetically campy and fun and just has an energy that is almost completely unmatched. I can't think of many other filmmakers that has his distinct brand of filmmaking. And so when I discovered that he made a Western movie, I was like, oh my God. On paper, I should love this because I love spaghetti westerns and I love Sam Raimi. What can go wrong, right? So like I mentioned before, the first time I watched this movie, I didn't really like it. Just watched it yesterday and prepped for this video. And I'm sad to report that I still don't really love the movie. I think the best aspects of the movie are solely on Sam Raimi's very interesting direction. But a film is only as good as its script. And in the case of The Quick and the Dead, you have Sam Raimi's very awesome style of filmmaking with some really great and crazy-ass shots and angles and cinematography in this movie that's just absolutely insane and bonkers, like the clip that I opened up with at the beginning of this video.
Oh, shit.
But it's all in service of a script that is incredibly uninspired and generic and unoriginal and bland. And Sam Raimi is doing everything he can to make this movie fun and interesting, but it keeps being dragged down by this bland, boring script. Now, the script was written by a writer named Simon Moore, who the only other thing of note he's done is the movie Traffic. He wrote this script as being a homage to spaghetti westerns, specifically that of Sergio Leone's films, the Dollars trilogy, and Once Upon a Time in the West. In fact, Sharon Stone's motivation for her character in this movie is kind of directly ripped off of Once Upon a Time in the West. And so the movie is meant to be an homage to that, and actually has kind of an interesting idea in that this movie takes place in a town that is taken over by this evil gunslinger played by Gene Hackman named John Herod. And he is responsible for the death of Sharon Stone's father in this movie, so she is looking for revenge. Sharon Stone is a character that first goes by The Lady, and then we eventually discover her name is Ellen. Very much a twist, if you will, although a very kind of generic lazy twist on Clint Eastwood's The Man with No Name type of character, where she kind of rolls into town, this town known as Redemption. And this town is known for having a quick draw contest where all the best gunslingers in the West come here. They have a draw contest to see who's the last man standing, kind of a 2 men enter, 1 man leave type of scenario. And so Sharon Stone, you know, goes to this town, enters this contest in order for her to go face to face with John Herod and get her revenge for killing her father. And then we're introduced to other characters such as Court, played by Russell Crowe in his American movie debut. He obviously did work in New Zealand and Australia, but this was his American film debut, where he is a former member of John Herod's gang, but after killing a priest and feeling very remorseful about it, he gives up being a gunslinger and tries to be a man of faith in God in order to save his soul from damnation. He and Sharon Stone have a bit of a romance in this movie, and then we also get introduced to Leonardo DiCaprio and one of his big major film roles, pre-Titanic. And poor casting, in my opinion, because every time you see Leonardo DiCaprio in this movie, it looks like a little kid playing cowboy for Halloween. It's just very distracting, and I think Leonardo DiCaprio is a great actor, as we would see in films like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But in this movie in particular, it's just kind of goofy, and so that's the movie in a nutshell. It's a very straightforward movie that kind of has an interesting idea, in that there's a town with quick draw contests, and the whole movie kind of takes place around this type of contest. It's an interesting idea, but all the other ideas, all the other characters in this movie, they just feel like poor, lazy renditions of better characters you've seen in better Western movies. That's basically my problem with the movie in a nutshell. But then we have Sam Raimi's direction, and that does a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of making this movie quite watchable and enjoyable, but there's also a disconnect. This movie at times has kind of a campy tone, which is, if you've seen Sam Raimi's films like the Evil Dead trilogy or Darkman, for example, one of my personal favorites, then you would know that campy is Sam Raimi's bread and butter. Nobody does camp quite like Sam Raimi, and it's beautiful to watch. So there are moments in this movie that have that classic campy Sam Raimi kind of tone, and those are the moments that shine the most. Those are the best aspects of this movie. That's the most fun parts of this movie. And then the other parts of this movie that feel completely disconnected from that is when the movie tries to take itself seriously, and these characters, who are paper thin in almost every regard, feel like caricatures of better characters you've seen in other Western movies. It's just hard to take the movie seriously when there's moments of that campy stuff, which is fun, and then the movie tries to get you to care about the more dramatic stuff in this movie, and speaking for myself, I just don't really. And because of that, there is a tonal inconsistency that can be kind of jarring in this movie. A great example of this is when we get to kind of the epic finale in this movie, where Court and Ellen come up with this plan because they have to go up against each other next to do the quick draw after they spent the night making love and they don't want to kill each other. They come up with the plan where Ellen's going to fake her own death, and she's going to set up dynamite and gunpowder barrels to blow up the town and catch Gene Hackman off guard. And then we get Kurt Russell doing some Ash William type moves with his guns, his rifle, and his two sidearms, which is something right out of Army of Darkness. It's so goofy. We get a flashback of, like I said, a scene that is very reminiscent of Once Upon a Time in the West with, Sharon Stone's father, played by Gary Sinise, who's hanging and accidentally gets shot by a young Sharon Stone because John Herod tried to get her to shoot the rope to try to save her dad, but she obviously was a little kid and accidentally killed him, and it's a very traumatic moment, right? And that scene is played seriously. We see that flashback. It's meant to be heavy and dramatic and, dark. And then Sharon Stone shoots John Herod in the head, and he does a full-on backflip. And it's just like, oh, God. And that scene is kind of the embodiment of my problem with this movie, is that this is a film that clearly doesn't know whether it should take itself seriously or if it should be a cartoon show. And if this film had the tone and the consistency of, let's say, an Army of Darkness, for example, and it was just kind of like an unapologetically entertaining, campy type of movie that is in the Western cinematic universe, and Sam Raimi's kind of having fun poking at the tropes and showing his version of like iconic Western scenes, then this movie would be awesome. But unfortunately, like I said, what drags this movie down is that it tries to take itself too seriously, and it doesn't really work because the characters are flat and everything in this movie is generic and cliched to the point of where it's almost like a bad parody. I think the film has some good performances. I think Sharon Stone, even though her character, is not the most original or engaging female protagonist I've seen in a movie, I think she does a good job playing the character. I think she looks badass in her Western getup. I like the idea of her playing kind of a female equivalent of a Clint Eastwood. Doesn't fully work though, because it just feels so uninspired in almost in every way. There's Gene Hackman, where he's just kind of awesome in every movie. Even if I've seen a movie that I don't like and Gene Hackman's in it, Gene Hackman is never the problem. He's just a incredibly consistent actor who has this voice, who has this screen presence that no matter what line he's saying, you just buy into it completely. He was a very special, one-of-a-kind actor. Rest in peace, Gene Hackman. Russell Crowe also gives a very decent performance. His character is the most interesting character in this movie. This gunslinger who wants to become a priest, who is looking to try to redeem himself of his troubling past, and he's an amazing gunslinger, and I almost wish the movie was focused on him. He has the most interesting backstory and complexity than any of the other characters in this movie. If the movie was more consistent, And if it had more of a tone that was akin to Army of Darkness or Darkman, I absolutely love Darkman. Darkman is a movie that I should definitely talk on this channel, where Darkman is kind of a love letter and homage to superhero movies. But it is consistently campy and fun throughout, even in its more dramatic moments. But the dramatic moments still match the over-the-top tone that Sam Raimi established in that movie. But The Quick and the Dead, there's a disconnect between those two things. And it should be mentioned that I think a movie can be an homage to, you know, other movies or specific genres and not feel so generic and uninspired. Case in point, Django Unchained. Quentin Tarantino has said numerous times that The Good and Bad and the Ugly is his favorite movie of all time, and that if there's one filmmaker that you can see in his work more than any other, it's Sergio Leone. He's been very outspoken about that. You take Django Unchained, which, you know, definitely pulls from all the spaghetti westerns out there, not just Sergio Leone's, but all of like that entire subgenre. He takes influence from all of those things, and yet he makes a movie that still feels completely Tarantino. It still feels original and distinct, and it has its own sense of identity, and it doesn't feel hyper cliched, and certainly it doesn't feel uninspired like The Quick and the Dead does, where that movie just feels like the most generic type of Western movie ever written. There's no sense of originality in the characters, in the dialogue, in the relationships. You compare that to Django Unchained, where I've never seen a character like Dr. Schultz, the German dentist turned bounty hunter. I'm like, that's a classic like Tarantino weird kind of genre subversion where he puts his own little twist on something, and it works, and it also pulls inspirations from the spaghetti western genre. So it can be done. You can make a movie that's a love letter, that's an homage to a specific genre, and make it feel fresh and exciting and show the influences that inspired the movie. But this is not one of those movies where, like, every idea more or less in this film you've seen a million times, and even worse than that, you've seen them done even better. The only thing that this movie really has going for it is Sam Raimi's direction. And it's really, really fun in those moments. I just wish that the rest of the movie matched that tone. And I also wish that there were some more interesting, original character dynamics that would have made the movie not feel so generic. But anyway, guys, that's my thoughts on The Quick and the Dead. I know this movie has a cult following, so a lot of people are going to disagree with me, and that's fine. But I do want to hear from you guys. What are your thoughts on this movie? Do you like it? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you agree? Do you disagree with me? Mention it in the comments below. And also mention what are some of your favorite Western movies of all time. I want to kind of get some ideas to talk about some more Western movies on this channel. And as always, thank you guys for watching.